Dr. Tae-jin could not believe his eyes. He stood in the quiet observatory at midnight staring at the computer screen. The coffee in his hand had turned cold, but he did not notice. The signal on his screen should not exist. This cannot be right, he said to himself. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard, running the tests again. The signal had first appeared 3 days ago. At first, Tae-jin thought it was just noise from a distant star or a satellite, but this signal was different. It followed a clear pattern, a perfect mathematical sequence that repeated over and over. Nature did not make patterns like this. Only intelligent beings made patterns like this. Tae-jin reached for the phone with a shaking hand. He needed to call his research partner. Ji-woo? It is Tae-jin. You need to come to the observatory right now. 40 minutes later, Dr. Ji-woo Kim rushed through the door. Her black hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, and she still wore her sleeping clothes under her coat. This better be important, she said, but stopped talking when she saw Tae-jin's face. What is it? Look at the signal, he said, pointing to the screen. It has been getting stronger for 3 days now. I ran every test. It is not coming from Earth. It is not a satellite. It is coming from near Alpha Centauri. Ji-woo sat down in front of the computer. She pushed her glasses up her nose and leaned close to the screen. Her eyes grew wider as she looked at the data. This pattern, it is changing, she whispered. It is becoming more complex. She looked up at Tae-jin, her face pale. This is not just a signal. This is a message. I think we just made first contact, Tae-jin said. By morning, other observatories around the world had picked up the signal too. The pattern was the same everywhere. Scientists from every country began working together to understand the message. The world's best code breakers and language experts joined the effort. 3 days later, they had their answer. Tae-jin and Ji-woo sat in a packed meeting room at the International Space Agency. Officials from 50 countries filled the room. Everyone was talking at once until the director stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the director said, and the room fell silent. Our team has translated the message from space. It is simple, but world-changing. The large screen behind him lit up with 5 words. Children of Earth. We are returning. The room exploded with voices. Some people stood up, shouting questions. Others sat in stunned silence. There is more, the director said, raising his hands for quiet. A second message arrived 1 hour ago. The screen changed to show new words. We are the Hanul. We seeded your world. You are our forgotten children. We have come to meet our legacy. That night, the news spread across the world. People gathered in homes, in bars, in public squares, all watching their screens as world leaders made announcements. Some people were scared. Some were excited. Many did not know what to feel. Religious leaders talked about what this meant for their faith. Scientists argued about whether humans could really be related to alien life. Military leaders made plans to protect Earth just in case these visitors were not friendly. Tae-jin and Ji-woo hardly slept. They stayed at the observatory, watching the skies, waiting for more signals. But no more messages came. Just silence. What do you think they mean by forgotten children? Ji-woo asked, her eyes red from lack of sleep. I do not know, Tae-jin said. But I think we will find out soon. He was right. 7 days after the first signal, it happened. People all over the world looked up to see strange lights in the sky. The lights grew bigger and took shape. They were ships, huge ships that appeared suddenly near the moon. Earth's defense systems went on high alert. Missiles were ready to launch. Fighter jets took to the skies. But the alien ships did nothing threatening. They simply stayed in orbit, waiting. A final message reached Earth, broadcast on all radio and television signals at once. We are the Hanul. We come in peace. We wish to meet with the leaders of Earth. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. After long talks, they agreed to send a team to meet the aliens. They would meet on a ship in international waters, a neutral place where no country had control. Tae-jin was shocked when he got the call. "Dr. Tae-jin," said the voice on the phone. "This is the Secretary General of the United Nations. We need your help. You were the first to discover the signal. We want you on the team that will meet these visitors." 3 days later, Tae-jin stood on the deck of a large ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Beside him were 11 other humans chosen for first contact. Scientists, language experts, diplomats, and military officers from different countries. A special landing pad had been built on the ship. They all watched the sky, waiting. "Are you scared?" Jiwoo asked. She had been chosen too as one of the world's top experts in communication patterns. "Yes," Tae-jin admitted, "but I'm also curious. If what they say is true, we are about to learn where humans really come from." A bright light appeared in the sky. It grew larger as it came closer. Soon they could see it was a small ship, much smaller than the huge one still waiting by the moon. The small ship slowed as it approached the landing pad. It made almost no sound as it touched down on the deck. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, a door opened in the side of the ship. A ramp extended down to the deck. A tall figure appeared in the doorway. It looked almost human, but not quite. Its skin seemed to glow from within, giving off a soft blue light. Its face had 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth like a human, but the shapes were slightly different. It wore simple white clothes that moved like water as it walked. The figure walked slowly down the ramp. 3 more figures followed behind it. The Mai, leader of the alien group, stopped a few feet away from the humans. It raised its hand in what looked like a greeting. "People of Earth," it said in perfect English, its voice deep and musical. "I am Elder Suk of the Hanul. We have traveled very far to find you, to find our children." Tae-jin stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "Welcome to Earth," he said. "We have many questions for you." Elder Suk's mouth curved into something like a smile. "And we have many answers to give you," he said. "It is time for you to learn your true history. It is time for you to know who you really are." The meeting room on the ship was large and bright. 12 humans sat on one side of a long table. 4 Hanul sat on the other side. Guards stood by the doors, watching carefully. Dr. Tae-jin looked at the aliens across from him. They looked almost human, but their skin gave off a soft blue glow. They were taller than most humans, with long fingers and large eyes. Their leader, Elder Suk, sat directly across from Tae-jin. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," said Ambassador Lee, the lead human diplomat. "We have many questions." Elder Suk nodded. "That is natural. We will answer what we can." The humans had planned their questions carefully. They needed to know if these visitors were a threat. They needed to understand what the Hanul meant when they called humans their children. Ambassador Lee started with the most important question. "You said we are your children. What exactly does that mean?" Elder Suk's eyes, which were a deep purple color, seemed to look into the distance for a moment. Then he focused on the humans again. "Long ago we came to your world," he said. His voice was deep and smooth. "Your people were just beginning. You were primitive, but had great potential. We saw this potential and helped it grow." Dr. Jiwoo Kim leaned forward. "Are you saying you created humans?" "No," said Elder Suk. "We did not create you. We guided you. We enhanced you. Your basic form was already there, but we helped your minds develop faster." General Do-yun, the military representative, frowned. "Why should we believe this? Do you have proof?" Another Hanul, who had been introduced as Scientist Minji, placed a small device on the table. It lit up and showed a 3-dimensional image of DNA strands floating in the air. "This is Hanul DNA," she said. "And this..." The image changed. "This is human DNA. Notice these sections." Certain parts of both DNA images began to glow red. "These sequences match," Minji explained. "They do not match any other life form on Earth. They are unique to humans and Hanul." The room was silent. Tae-jin stared at the floating images, his mind racing with the implications. If this was true, it changed everything humans thought about their origins. Sun He, the cultural anthropologist, spoke next. How long ago did this happen? When did you enhance early humans? By your calendar, approximately 200,000 years ago, said Elder Suk. We spent several thousand years working with your ancestors. Then we left. Why did you leave? Asked Tae-jin. And why come back now? Elder Suk's expression changed slightly. It was hard for the humans to read Hanul emotions, but Tae-jin thought he looked sad. Those are important questions, said Elder Suk. But first we wish to learn about you, about how you have developed, about your societies and cultures. The meeting continued for hours. The Hanul asked questions about human history, technology, and beliefs. The humans asked about Hanul society and their travels through space. But Elder Suk avoided answering why they had left Earth or why they had returned. At the end of the meeting, Elder Suk made an offer. We would like to establish embassies on Earth, places where our people can meet with yours. We wish to share knowledge and technology. After the meeting, the human delegation gathered in a private room to discuss what they had learned. They are hiding something, said General Do-hyun. They avoided our most important questions. But their genetic evidence is compelling, said Dr. Park, the geneticist. I need to study it more, but at first look it supports their claim. What do you think, Tae-jin? Asked Ambassador Lee. Tae-jin thought carefully before answering. I think they are telling the truth about enhancing early humans, but I agree with General Do-hyun. They are not telling us everything. That night, Tae-jin could not sleep. He walked out onto the deck of the ship and looked up at the stars. The huge Hanul ships were visible as bright points of light, hanging near the moon. Cannot sleep? Tae-jin turned to find Jiwoo standing nearby. Too much to think about, he said. I keep wondering why they left, said Jiwoo. If we were so important to them, why abandon us for 200,000 years? And why come back now? Added Tae-jin. A week later, the United Nations agreed to the Hanul request. 4 embassies would be established in different parts of the world, one in Seoul, one in New York, one in Nairobi, and one in Sydney. A team of humans would also visit the main Hanul ship to learn about their technology and culture. Tae-jin and Jiwoo were assigned to the Seoul embassy. They were part of the scientific team that would work directly with the Hanul. On the first day the embassy opened, crowds gathered outside. Some people held signs welcoming the aliens. Others held signs warning of danger. Police kept the two groups apart. Inside the embassy, Tae-jin met with Elder Suk in a private room. The walls were made of a strange material that seemed to absorb sound. The lights were softer than in human buildings. Thank you for agreeing to work with us, said Elder Suk. I am still not sure I believe everything you have told us, said Tae-jin honestly. Elder Suk nodded. That is wise. Trust must be earned. He gestured to a door. Come. There is something I wish to show you. Tae-jin followed Elder Suk through the door into a large room. In the center was a table with what looked like a small city made of light. This is a model of our home world, said Elder Suk. It is called Hanul, like our people. Tae-jin walked around the table studying the model. The buildings were tall and curved, unlike human architecture. There were no straight lines anywhere. It is beautiful, said Tae-jin, but very different from Earth cities. Yes, said Elder Suk, but there are similarities too. He touched the table, and the image changed to show people walking through the city. They looked more like the Hanul, but their movements, the way they interacted, reminded Tae-jin of humans. We are more alike than different, said Elder Suk. That is why we believe you are ready for the truth. What truth? Asked. Tae-jin. Elder Suk's expression became very serious. The truth about why we left and why we have returned. He touched the table again, and the beautiful city disappeared. In its place was an image of destruction, buildings in ruins, the sky dark with smoke. Our civilization was once much greater than it is now, said Elder Suk. We had colonies on many worlds. Earth was one of them, But then we faced an enemy that nearly destroyed us all. Tai Jin stared at the images of destruction. What enemy? We call them the Void, said Elder Suk. They came from the spaces between stars. We fought them for 100 years, but we were losing. We knew our civilization might fall. So you left Earth because of this war? Asked Tai Jin. We left Earth to protect it, said Elder Suk. You were our hope for the future. If our civilization fell, something of us would continue in you. Tai Jin felt a chill run down his spine. And now? Why have you returned now? Elder Suk looked directly into Tai Jin's eyes. Because the Void is returning, and this time we cannot face them alone. We need the help of our children. 3 months had passed since the Hanul first arrived on Earth. Their embassies now stood in 4 major cities around the world. Each day, more humans visited these strange buildings to learn about their so-called ancestors from the stars. Dr. Jiwoo Kim had been promoted to lead the scientific exchange program at the Seoul Embassy. She worked directly with the Hanul scientists, learning about their technology and sharing human knowledge in return. Today, she was meeting with Mino, one of the Hanul historians. They sat in a room with walls that seemed to shift colors based on the mood of the conversation. Right now, the walls were a calm blue. I have studied your history books, said Mino. Your people have faced many challenges, wars, diseases, natural disasters, yet you always rebuild. Humans are good at surviving, said Jiwoo. It is one of our strengths. Mino nodded. Yes, that is why we chose your ancestors. We saw that potential in them. Jiwoo had been working with the Hanul for months, but she still had many questions. Mino, there is something I do not understand. If Earth was your colony, why did you leave? Mino touched a small device on the table. A large star map appeared in the air between them. Earth was not a colony, he said. It was a sanctuary. The star map zoomed in to show a group of stars. Some of them were marked with small blue dots. This was our civilization 200,000 years ago, Mino explained. We had spread across 12 star systems. The image changed. Some of the stars turned red. Others went dark completely. Then the Void War began. The Void War? Asked Jiwoo. Dr. Tai Jin mentioned this. Elder Suk told him about an enemy called the Void. Yes, said Mino. His face became very serious. The Void are not like us. They are not like you. They come from the empty spaces between stars. They consume worlds. The star map showed dark shapes moving between the stars. Wherever they went, stars went dark. We fought them for 100 years, said Mino. But we were losing. Our great cities fell one by one. Billions of our people died. Jiwoo stared at the map, watching the history of a war that happened long before humans had even built their first cities. So what did Earth have to do with this? We needed a backup plan, said Mino. If our civilization was destroyed, something of us needed to continue. We searched for planets with promising life forms. We found many, but Earth was special. Special how? Your ancestors were already developing intelligence. They had potential. We visited Earth and made changes to their genetics. We helped them develop faster. Jiwoo thought about this. So humans exist because you were preparing for extinction? Yes, said Mino. We seeded many worlds, but Earth was our greatest hope. The star map changed again, showing more and more stars going dark. Then suddenly the darkness stopped spreading. We nearly lost everything, said Mino. But in the end we survived. Barely. Our civilization fell from 12 star systems to just 1. We lost most of our knowledge and technology. It has taken us 200,000 years to rebuild, to remember all our lost colonies and outposts. And now you have returned to Earth, said Jiwoo. Yes, and we found something unexpected. You have developed differently than we thought you would. In some ways, you have advanced differently than we did. Perhaps better. Jiwoo was not sure how to respond to that. Better how? Mino smiled. an expression he had clearly learned from humans. Your minds work differently than ours. You make connections we would not make. You solve problems in ways we would not try. It is fascinating. Before Jiwoo could ask more questions, her phone rang. She looked at it and saw it was Taejin calling. "Excuse me," she said to Mino. "I need to take this call." She stepped out of the room into the hallway. "Taejin, what is it?" "Jiwoo, have you seen the news?" Taejin's voice sounded excited. "The Hanul diplomatic team just shared something big with the United Nations." "No, I have been in meetings all day." "What happened?" "They are not just here. To reconnect with us, they need our help." Jiwoo felt a chill run down her spine. Help with what? The beings they fought before, the ones they call the Void. The Hanul believe they are returning, and they think humans might be the key to defeating them. After her call with Taejin, Jiwoo returned to the meeting room. Mino was still there, waiting patiently. "You knew, did you not?" Jiwoo asked. "About the Void returning?" Mino nodded slowly. "Yes, that is the main reason we came to find you." "Why did you not tell us this from the beginning?" Jiwoo demanded. "We needed to understand you first," said Mino. "To see what you had become, to make sure you were ready for this knowledge, sat back down at the table. "Tell me the truth, all of it. What do you need from us?" Mino touched his device again. The star map disappeared, replaced by an image of what looked like a brain scan. On one side was a Hanul brain, on the other was a human brain. "Our minds are very organized," Mino explained. "We think in straight lines, logical, orderly. It makes us good at building and planning." "And humans?" asked Jiwoo. "You think in loops and jumps. You connect ideas that seem unrelated. You are creative in ways we are not. And this helps against the Void how? The Void can predict our thoughts. They can see the patterns in how we think and plan. But you," Mino pointed to the human brain scan, "your thought patterns confuse them. They cannot predict what you will do." Jiwoo began to understand. "You want us to help plan your defense. You want us to think of strategies the Void will not expect." "Yes," said Mino, "but it is more than that. We believe the Void will reach this solar system within 5 years. We cannot face them alone. We need to fight together." "You want humans to join your war," said Jiwoo. "It was not a question. We want to protect our children," said Mino. "And we need our children to help protect us." That evening, Jiwoo met with Taejin at a small restaurant near the embassy. The place was almost empty. Most people were at home watching the news about the Hanul announcement. "So they came back because they need our help," said Taejin, sipping his coffee. "Yes," said Jiwoo. But Mino said something interesting. He said we develop differently than they expected, that our minds work in ways theirs do not. "That makes sense," said Taejin. "They are much older than us as a species, more advanced. But maybe being advanced means being more specialized. Like how a calculator is better at math than a human, but cannot write a poem or paint a picture," suggested Jiwoo. "Exactly," said Taejin. "The Hanul are very organized and logical. We are more creative and unpredictable." Jiwoo looked out the window at the stars that were just becoming visible in the evening sky. "They left us to grow on our own, hoping something of them would survive if they lost their war. And now they have returned to find that we became something different than what they expected," said Taejin. "Something they need," added Jiwoo. "The question is," said Taejin, "what will humans decide to do? Will we help our long-lost ancestors fight their war? Or will we tell them this is not our fight?" Jiwoo thought about the star map she had seen, all those worlds going dark as the Void moved through them. If what the Hanul say is true, it will become our fight, whether we want it or not. The Void will come here eventually. "Then we better start learning everything we can about them," said Taejin. "Because it sounds like the future of both our species depends on it." 6 months had passed since the Hanul arrived on Earth. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Hanul technology was now being shared with humans, bringing new advances in medicine, clean energy, and transportation. But not everyone was happy about these changes. Some people welcomed the Hanul as long-lost family. Others saw them as dangerous invaders. Protests happened daily outside the Hanul embassies. Some religious groups claimed the aliens were lying about human origins. Military leaders worried that Earth was being pulled into a war it could not win. Deep beneath the Pyrenees Mountains in Europe, a special research facility had been built. Here, scientists from around the world worked with Hanul experts to understand why the ancient aliens were so interested in human minds. Dr. Tae-jin stood in the main laboratory looking at brain scans on a large screen. Next to him was Ryu, a Hanul neurobiologist with pale blue skin and curious eyes. "These patterns are amazing," said Ryu, pointing to the human brain scan. "When you solve problems, your brain creates connections across many different areas. Our brains do not work this way." "Is that good or bad?" asked Tae-jin. "It is different," said Ryu. "We think in straight lines, very ordered, very logical. You think in loops and jumps. Less efficient in some ways, but more creative." A door opened and Dr. Young-ho Park entered the room. He was a physicist who had joined the project last month. He did not trust the Hanul and made no secret of it. "Dr. Park," said Tae-jin, "thank you for coming." "I still think this whole project is a mistake," said Young-ho. "We are giving these aliens access to our most valuable resource, human minds." "We are learning from each other," said Ryu calmly. "This is not about taking, it is about sharing." "So you say," replied Young-ho. "But we only have your word that these void creatures even exist. Maybe this is all a trick to study us." Tae-jin sighed. This argument happened almost daily. "Dr. Park, the United Nations has verified the Hanul claims. Their ships have been detected entering our solar system. The void are real." "Fine," said Young-ho, "but I still do not understand how our supposedly messy human thinking is going to help against these void creatures." "Ryu, you still have not explained that clearly." Ryu walked to another screen and brought up a new image. It showed strange shifting shapes that hurt the eyes if you looked at them too long. "This is the best image we have of a void entity," said Ryu. "They exist partially outside normal spacetime. They perceive reality differently than we do." "And," prompted Young-ho, "our highly ordered Hanul consciousness is visible to them. Predictable. They can see the patterns in how we think and plan." Tae-jin leaned forward. "And humans?" "Your thought patterns create interference in their perception," said Ryu. "You are not invisible to them, but you are confusing, disruptive. We believe this is why they never found Earth during the war." Young-ho looked skeptical. "So, you are saying that humans are confusing to these void creatures because we think in messy ways?" "Yes," said Ryu. "Your unpredictability is your greatest strength against them." Tae-jin had been thinking about this for weeks. "It makes a strange kind of sense. The Hanul enhanced early humans but then left us alone for 200,000 years. We developed on our own, taking different evolutionary paths. And now the very messiness that the Hanul might have seen as primitive could be our greatest weapon," added Young-ho, finally starting to understand. "Exactly," said Ryu. "This is why we believe humans must be at the center of our defense strategy. Not as soldiers, but as tactical planners. Your unpredictable thinking could be the key to defeating the void." Later that week, Tae-jin attended a high-level meeting at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The large meeting room was filled with world leaders, military commanders, and Hanul representatives. Elder Suk stood at the front of the room. "We have detected void activity at the edge of your solar system," said Elder Suk. His voice was calm but serious. "We estimate we have 1 year before they reach Earth." The room erupted in worried voices. The Secretary General called for order. "What do you propose we do?" asked the Secretary General once the room was quiet again. Elder Suk nodded to a human woman who stood up. She was General Hana Lee, the newly appointed commander of Earth's defense forces. "We have developed a joint strategy," said General Lee. "The Hanul will provide the technology and ships. Humans will provide the tactical planning and command structure." She touched a control, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed Earth, the Moon, and a network of defensive positions extending outward through the solar system. We call it the Chaotic Defense Network, she explained. It is based on human game theory and enhanced by Hanul technology. The patterns are unpredictable, even to us. We believe this will make it impossible for the Void to anticipate our movements. Military officer from Russia stood up. You want us to put our faith in a defense system that even we do not understand? That sounds like madness. That is exactly the point, said Tae-jin, speaking up from his seat. The Void can predict logical, ordered thinking. They cannot predict what appears to be madness. The discussion continued for hours. Some nations were eager to join the defense plan, others were reluctant. But as the meeting went on, more and more leaders began to see the logic in this seemingly illogical approach. By the end of the day, the United Nations had voted to create a joint human Hanul defense force. General Lee would lead the human side, working directly with the Hanul military commander. As Tae-jin left the meeting, he found Ji-woo waiting for him in the hallway. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected, said Tae-jin. The plan was approved. General Lee will lead our forces. I just received new data from the research team, said Ji-woo. The Void ships are moving faster than we thought. They will reach the outer planets in 6 months, not a year. Tae-jin felt a cold weight in his stomach. Then we need to work faster. We need to prepare. I have been thinking, said Ji-woo as they walked toward the exit. The Hanul created us to be their legacy. They wanted something of them to continue if they were destroyed. Yes, said Tae-jin, and now we might be the key to saving them. It is strange how things work out, said Ji-woo. They thought they were our creators, but in the end we might be their saviors. Tae-jin looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the Void was coming, ancient enemies of their even more ancient ancestors. A threat to both species. We should get back to the research facility, he said. We have a lot of work to do. Ji-woo nodded. The future of two worlds depends on it. The alarm sounded throughout the command center. Red lights flashed on every wall. Captain Ji-hoon Lee ran to his station, his heart pounding. This was not a drill. Status report, he called out as he reached the main control room. Lieutenant Mina. Song looked up from her screen. Her face was pale. Void ships detected near Neptune, Captain. They arrived sooner than we expected. Ji-hoon nodded grimly. For the past 6 months, Earth and the Hanul had been preparing for this moment. They had built a fleet of ships using Hanul technology, but designed with human unpredictability in mind. Ji-hoon was the captain of the flagship named Prometheus. Alert all ships, said Ji-hoon. Prepare to launch in 1 hour. Commander Yoon, the Hanul second-in-command, stepped forward. His skin glowed a soft blue in the dim light of the control. Captain, are you sure the fleet is ready? We expected to have another month of training. Ready or not, the Void are here, said Ji-hoon. We go with what we have. 3 hours later, the Earth Hanul defense fleet left Earth orbit. 20 ships, each with a mixed crew of humans and Hanul. They headed toward the outer planets where the Void had been detected. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Ji-hoon watched the stars through the main viewport. He had never imagined he would be leading a fleet to defend Earth from alien invaders. Just 1 year ago, he had been a naval officer. Now, he was a starship captain. Nervous? Asked Yoon, coming to stand beside him. Yes, admitted Ji-hoon, but also ready. We have trained for this. Your plan is unlike anything my people would have created, said Yoon. It is chaotic. That is the point, said Ji-hoon with a small smile. The Void can predict order. They cannot predict chaos. The fleet traveled for 2 days, moving deeper into the solar system. The mood on the ships was tense. Everyone knew what was at stake. If they failed, both Earth and the last Hanul world would fall to the Void. Mina called out from her station. Captain, we are detecting a dimensional disturbance near Jupiter. It matches the signature of Void ships. All ships, battle stations, ordered Ji-hoon. Prepare to implement Chaotic Response Protocol Alpha. The fleet moved into position. To an outside observer, their formation would look random, even disorganized. But it followed a complex pattern designed by human game theorists and enhanced by HFY technology. "Dimensional breach detected," reported Mina, her voice steady despite her fear. "Void ships entering normal space." On the main screen, they saw them for the first time. The void ships were hard to look at. They seemed to bend light around them, creating shapes that hurt the eyes. They did not look solid. Instead, they seemed to shift and change as they moved. "7 void ships detected," said Mina. "They are in a standard attack formation." Added, just as our historical records predicted." Ji-hoon took a deep breath. "Begin the dance," he said. This was what they had called their battle plan in training. Not a direct attack, but a dance. A complex, unpredictable series of movements designed to confuse and disorient the void. The Earth-HFY ships began to move in seemingly random patterns. They fired weapons that the HFY had designed based on human ideas. Instead of direct energy beams, these weapons distorted space-time in unpredictable ways. At first, the void ships did not react. They continued their standard approach. Then suddenly they faltered. Their formation broke apart. They began to move erratically. "It is working," said Yoon, surprise in his voice. "They cannot predict our movements." The battle continued for hours. The void adapted to each pattern the human ships used, but then the fleet would switch to a new pattern, something completely different. It was like a game of chess where the rules kept changing. "Void ship breaking through," called Mina suddenly. "It is heading for the Artemis." Ji-hoon watched as one of the void ships moved toward one of their smaller vessels. Before they could react, the void ship made contact. The Artemis seemed to fold in on itself, its hull crumpling like paper. Then it was gone. 60 crew lost, said Yoon quietly. Ji-hoon felt the weight of those lives, but he could not stop now. "Continue the dance," he ordered. "Pattern Delta." The Ban fleet shifted again, moving in a new formation. 2 more void ships were disabled by their weapons, but then another human ship was lost. The battle continued, each side adapting to the other. After 3 days of constant fighting, both sides were damaged and tired. Only 3 void ships remained. The human HFY fleet had lost 4 ships. "They are retreating," said Mina, as the void ships began to move away from the battle. "They are heading back toward the dimensional breach." "Should we pursue?" asked. Ji-hoon shook his head. "No, we let them go. We need to repair our ships and prepare for their return. This was just a scout force." The fleet returned to Earth orbit as heroes. News of their victory spread across the planet. For the first time, humans and HFY had fought together against a common enemy, and they had won. In the days that followed, repairs began on the damaged ships. Plans were made to build more vessels. The defense network was expanded. One evening, Ji-hoon found himself on the observation deck of the Prometheus, looking down at Earth. Yoon joined him there. "Your people fought well," said Yoon. "As did yours," replied Ji-hoon. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the blue planet below them. "Elder Suk was right about humans," said Yoon finally. "You were the key to defeating the void." "For now," said Ji-hoon. "They will be back, will they not?" "Yes, and in greater numbers." Yoon turned to face Ji-hoon. "This was merely a scout force. The main void fleet is still out there, beyond your solar system. They will come. And we will be ready," said Ji-hoon with quiet confidence. "Not just as your children, but as your partners." Yoon nodded slowly. "Partners? Yes, that is what we have become." "2 civilizations," said Ji-hoon. "One ancient and ordered, one young and chaotic, standing together against the darkness between stars. Down on Earth, in the research facility beneath the mountains, Tae-jin and Ji-woo continued their work. They studied the data from the battle, looking for ways to improve their defenses. They trained new crews for the ships being built. "I never thought our greatest strength would be our messiness," said Ji-woo as they reviewed battle recordings. Tae-jin smiled. The Hanul created us to be orderly, like them, but left on our own, we became chaotic. And that chaos saved them, said Jiwoo. Across Earth and throughout the Hanul fleet, humans and their ancient ancestors prepared for the conflicts to come. They knew the void would return. But now they had something they did not have before. They had hope. The forgotten children had been remembered just in time. And in their reunion lay the potential salvation of two peoples. For the first time in its long history, the Hanul civilization looked to the future with something they had lost millennia ago. Hope, born from the unpredictable brilliance of the children they had left behind. And as for humanity, they had found not only their ancient ancestors but also their place among the stars. They were no longer alone in the universe. They were part of something greater, a legacy that stretched across 200,000 years. Together, the two civilizations would face whatever came from the darkness between the stars, and together, they would prevail.